Kia ora, kia koutou e whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei kōrero e pā ana ki te mahi rangahau Rongoā Māori, tēnei te mihi aroha kia koutou. Ko Glenys Mark tōku ingoa, nō Ngāpuhi, Tainui, Ngāi Tahu me Ngāti Koata o Kuiwi, nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora and hello from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Thank you for joining me to listen to this presentation on our research on Rongoā Māori, and I'd like to acknowledge my co-researchers, Dr. Amohia Bolton, Director for Whakawai Research, Dr. Tanya Orport, Senior Researcher for Whakawai Research, Donna Kerridge, Rongoā Practitioner, and Jill Portaka Osborne, Researcher at Whakawai Research. And this presentation is focused on the preliminary conclusions on our current research on Rongoā Māori, and it is focused on the future for Māori lying and understanding our past, where Rongoā Māori is the connector between the past and the future. So to start with, I'd like to provide an introduction to Rongoā Māori for those who are unfamiliar. Rongoā Māori is our traditional healing system that was developed out of Māori cultural traditions. It is well known as a group of modalities that include, but are not limited to, ritenga and karakia, which are incantations and rituals and prayer. The rongoā or herbal remedies comes from our native trees and bushes. Our mirimiri or romi, which are physical therapies similar to massage and physiotherapy. There are also the use of wai or hauwai, which is water or steam to heal, and surgical interventions, as well as matakite or wairua, which is prophecy, second sight, intuition. Now, for those who aren't aware, Māori healers do not follow a prescribed model or approach to healing. So what healers will do is tune into what the patient is needing, and it may be one or all of or none of the above of group of modalities. It just depends on what the patient is needing. And the cultural traditions are informed in the healing practices through a long history of oral transmission of generational knowledge. And these can be specific to different regions or iwi or tribes or hapu or sub-tribes and whānau. So although in the north we have warmer weather where there will be a different set of plants, in the south they may have other ways or other plants that will be used for healing. And so it differs around the country as to what people will actually use. So healers are very flexible and may even find that their patients only just need some food or a hug or some discussion about what's going on. And so it's a really flexible form of healing that is really focused on the patient. Our Rongoā Māori research project was titled Te Ao Rauropi, Mapping the Biosphere of Rongoā Māori. And what we found is that there are many New Zealanders who do not know that Rongoā Māori exists, which is the majority. And for those who do know it exists, they have a very limited understanding of what Rongoā Māori includes. And then again, there are the rongoā healers and their families, or the teachers and their students who have a very thorough and working knowledge of the practices of Rongoā Māori healing. And so in other research on collaboration between healers and doctors in the medical system, we realised that if so few people understand what Rongoā Māori involves, then it will be really difficult to facilitate collaboration where the majority of people don't even know that Rongoā Māori exists. So that's one of the reasons why this project came about, is that we really wanted to explore the fuller meaning of rongoā and the holistic concepts that are involved in the values and the customs and the practices of the healing practices. And so this was a kaupapa Māori or a Māori run research project that was qualitative, and we sought to illustrate the potential of Rongoā Māori to articulate the theory and practice and show the full range of well-being benefits that derive from this traditional form of healing. And we acknowledge our research funders, the Health Research Council, which was hosted by Whakawai Research. We had 52 practitioner and patient participants who had either given and or received Rongoā Māori healing, and they came from across Aotearoa, New Zealand, from both the North and South Island, and they participated in different formats. So some opted to be interviewed singularly as a key informant, and some were involved in a focus group, and some were involved in a wānanga or a group learning circle. And interviews were held with each participant twice. So in between interviews, we wanted to maintain contact. So we held a follow-up call with those who were willing, and we also provided a vignette or a short summary of the first interview, and we provided a koha to each participant, which is a small donation. After a few interviews, we held group data analysis sessions and continued that process as the interviews were being done. So we used the Rongoā Māori methodological framework, which is based on a whakatauki or a proverb. And the whakatauki is nau te roro, nāku te roro, ka ora ai te iwi. And the meaning of this whakatauki is related to baskets of food. So the meaning is, with your food basket and with my food basket, we will feed all of the people. And so I took this whakatauki and broke it up into 3 parts and 3 steps of data analysis as a way to include cultural concepts into our research and our data analysis. So the first step, Nau Te Roro, was about taking what each of the participants had provided to us. And then in the second step, we provided our own interpretation on what they had told us. And that in the third step, we would pull all of that data together and create a larger picture over what everyone had given us. And so we used this Rongoā Māori methodological framework as a way to analyse the data, and we are still in the first 2 steps of analysis. And next year, as we continue and finish the interviews and complete our data analysis, we will move on to the third step. And so we did this in a group fashion, meeting together to discuss the interviews and the meaning, and we did that as a group all together. These are our preliminary findings that we've found in our data analysis process so far. And first, we found that there was a reclamation of traditional knowledge through healing. So we found that participants were reclaiming their Māori identity through remembering and reconnecting to healing knowledge from the past. So this theme was inspired by the way that many participants talked about how they were given, taught, or watched the making of rongoā by whānau members as children, even if they didn't know what it was at the time. And then as adults, they often became busy or moved away and disconnected from this information. And so we had many stories about people recounting their past experience and knowledge about rongoā, reclaiming their culture, their whānau, their family, their spiritual connections, as well as reconnecting with the land. And some participants talked about how this was seen as a form of decolonisation or even recolonisation. We also found that participants expanded on the meaning of rongoā and healing practices, so that instead of a set of herbal remedies only, rongoā was described as a holistic way of life. So rongoā was described as a holistic range of connections to people, family and the environment. So there was a wide range of therapies and concepts described by participants, such as the taha wairua, the spiritual side, romi, the physical therapies, but there was also the inclusion of things like tākaro, which were our Māori games, as well as the taonga puoro or flute instruments, as well as cleaning the land and the rivers. So there was a discussion of interconnectedness of rongoā with the emotional, spiritual and family aspects of life. People talked about how rongoā was more focused on wellness instead of sickness, which included the family and the genealogy. And they also spoke about rongoā as being about vibration and aroha or love, empowerment and rangatiratanga or sovereignty, as well as cultural identity. So it became about much more than a list of modalities or herbal plant remedies, and described cultural concepts as well as healing therapies. So Rongoā was really about holistic concepts of healing, cultural identity, as well as a way of life. We also found that there was an interconnection between the people in the land and the whenua, so that people were one with the land through whakapapa or genealogy, through engagement with the land by collecting plants and food, and through kaitiakitanga or conservation activities. And participants talked about having a connection with Tāne Mahuta, god of the forest, Tangaroa, god of the sea, and Papatuanuku, Mother Earth. They provided pathways to health, healing, and food. People spoke about having a deep connection with the whenua, with the land, with the waters, the oceans, the waterfalls, the rivers. They talked about having a connection between all things, which included the environment as well as the celestial spaces, water, food, rivers, and the land. And Rongoā was really described as being a part of everything. So the environment was seen as having a significant impact on the health of the people, so that when the land was healthy, the people were healthy, and the opposite was also true. And we also included the traditional arts. And so the creative contribution of the traditional arts to the understanding of Rongoā was to understand that our cultural traditions were involved in the traditional arts, tā moko tattooing, taonga puoro, flute instruments, flax weaving, and the maramataka, or the Maori calendar, which guides life activities by the moon cycles. So all of these traditional arts also contributed to the knowledge and meaning of Rongoā, because they also held Rongoā Māori, or Maori knowledge. And so this expanded on our understanding of what Rongoā involves. And so here I've provided some excerpts from our participants relating to each theme. So in the reclamation of traditional knowledge through healing, we had one participant say, it's a resurgence of what we already knew, but now it's putting it back into practice. They need to start again and look back to what their tupuna or ancestors done, look backwards to come forwards. In the theme of the expansion of the meaning of Rongoā and healing practices, one participant said, Rongoā is holistic. Rongoā is who we are as a people. Rongoā is everything. It's our connection to Papatuanuku, Mother Earth. It's her connection to us. It's the wellness of the whānau, a holistic action. And under the theme of interconnection between the people and the whenua, or the land, one participant said that deep connection to whenua, or land, to moon, to cycles, to environment, to everything that comes under that. And that's how you become who you are. And then you are of the land, because you are of the land. You're not above it, you're with it. And under the creative contribution of the traditional arts, one participant said, if we have a look at all of our kete, or baskets, of mātauranga, or knowledge, all of our toi, or Māori arts and crafts, all of our arts, all are Rongoā. And these provided really concrete direction about what these things were really meaning to us. The question for our presentation of Te Ao Taketake was, how can Indigenous languages, customs, traditions, values and knowledge continue to inform our futures? So we found that the future for Māori lies in remembering traditional Rongoā knowledge, because healing has a multifaceted range of holistic meanings and benefits. The health of the whenua, or the land, to the well-being of people is significant, and the contribution of the traditional arts to healing expands on mātauranga, Māori and Rongoā knowledge. So this past knowledge held within Rongoā Māori healing traditions will help to create a connection between the past and the future, to help inform and create a flourishing Indigenous future where both the people and the land are interconnected through healing. Without this healing connection between the people and the land, we may inadvertently move into a future that does not maintain our core Māori cultural values and identity. At the start of this project, we realised that only a small percentage of New Zealanders, including Māori, actually know that Rongoā Māori exists. As we move towards the future in Te Ao Taketake, working on reducing the discrimination against, misunderstanding of, and the lack of awareness about the fuller practice and value of Rongoā healing will ideally provide a partnership of the old and the new knowledge to create improved health and healing outcomes for Māori. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our participants for sharing their knowledge, time and stories with us. Thanks to the Health Research Council as the research funders. And I've just put 2 project references that you can find on our Whakawai website and or online. And thank you for listening.